Welcome to the Meditation Matters podcast, brought to you by EcoWelco, where we learn, explore, and use wellness practices to live well on purpose. Join us today as we explore awareness as a superpower, meaning how it shows up in our daily lives, how we can use it in our wellness practices, along with some activities and practices to cultivate well-being and, of course, learn to live well on purpose. Let's dive in. I would just like to say that I'm super excited to finally be back podcasting. I took a bit of a break, about a year actually, from podcasting in total. And I was focusing on other things like, I would primarily say healing, deep inner healing that honestly, when I first started to take a break in between seasons, I didn't realize that that was the reason why I was taking a break. But then as I started to progress throughout the year and just kind of realize all the things that I was experiencing and going through and learning, I was like, okay, so I'm taking a bit of a break from this for a deep reason. Something that holds true as for EcoWelco, for everything that I do in this space, is that anything that I talk about, any wellness practice, just anything in general, like if I don't know about it, obviously it's my best intention to bring somebody on board that does know about it and that can obviously teach me. But if I'm also trying to be here in this space to be as authentic as possible and to also, walk the walk and talk the talk, and walk the talk, and also there's interchanging of this, basically saying that what I'm preaching about that I'm also doing within myself, then sometimes that takes me to a place where I have to take a back seat from everything that's going on in my life, from everything that I want to run, that I want to have all these, see all these results from, everything that I want to produce, to have some inner time. And so I have this series that it's kind of like a love child at this point. It's a wellness for entrepreneurs. And in one of the episodes, I talk about how do we plan for cycles within ourselves. Because if we're running a business, for example, or we're doing anything in life, right, there's going to be periods of time when we may experience a quote unquote down cycle, right? Or an internal cycle where we may need to go within to process some trauma, to heal some wounds, to just learn new things, to upskill, to do whatever it is that we're trying to do. Like, for example, if I'm trying to break into tech and, break into AI, machine learning, I'm going to have to learn what I need to learn in order to bring into those spaces. I'm going to have to learn the coding languages, going to have to develop the, interpersonal skills that I might need, the soft skills, what they call them. Anything that I don't already have, I'm going to have to take some time to develop those skills. So I'm going to have to go within through external training in some cases. Well, for tech, you're going to have to get some external training in order to learn how to do that. But you have to take a moment away in order to then come back out even bigger and better, right? So from a healing perspective and an internal perspective, I didn't realize it at first, but as I was going through it, and I was like, okay, I'm taking time away from everything so that I can decipher everything that's going on within. And now I'm able to show up even bigger and better than ever before. So it's quite an amazing journey, and something that continuing to explore within myself, like how to prepare for these types of cycles, because even if things are up and up and up for years, eventually they may come to a point where they may need to go down for a bit. They may need to rest for a bit. Or even, for example, if we look at the 4 seasons, I'm currently based in the Northeast in the United States. So we experience 4 seasons here: winter, fall, summer, spring. And a lot of the times the winter for me, every single time, is a time of hibernation. Now, it just so happened that I took a year of hibernation. And sometimes that's the case. You kind of just need the entire year. But case in point, I really took the time to sit and explore and understand myself. And now I'm back with a brand new season of Meditation Matters that is about so many things. Oh my gosh, super excited. EcoWelco has a new slogan also, which is Live Well on Purpose. And this new season is about 3 main things. 1, expanding awareness via different concepts that we're going to be exploring, from intrinsic worthiness to thought patterning and repatterning to inner child recognition and healing, to exploring the power of making declarations, repatterning judgment, sadness, shame, and so many other topics that are emotion-based, goal-based, action-based, habit-based. So that's one thing. The second thing is cultivating wellness through wellness practices. I will actively be sharing different tips, tricks, practices. We'll be going through some things in these podcast episodes and other mediums. So I will be hosting individual wellness coaching as well as group wellness coaching, and even corporate wellness coaching, so that we can take some of these practices that I'll be talking about and dive even deeper into them in these various sessions. And then the last part is actively using everything that I'll be talking about in these various mediums, especially on the podcast here, to live well on purpose. The slogan came to me recently and I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally the slogan. So Eco Welco, Live Well on Purpose. And this Meditation Matters podcast really tries to take all of that and bring it to you in an audio format so that we can begin using these practices together. So I decided that I wanted to add a new feature, well, not really a feature, but just a slight addition to each one of my podcast episodes. And this would be the introduction to it, which we're going to take a moment to set an intention or an affirmation for every single one of our episodes. So I have my intention for this episode. You can use this intention as well, or you can pick something else that is more suited for you. Now, the title of the episode is Awareness is a Superpower. So in honor of that, I picked an intention/affirmation that honors that. So it is, I am in control of my awareness. My awareness is a superpower. My awareness is clear and grounded. Now, of course, you can take time to resonate on this and decide if it resonates with you. If it doesn't, you can pick something similar, something completely different, whatever it is. All I know is that this episode for today is crafted to create a safe space to explore what awareness even is. Why would it be a superpower? How it shows up in our daily life? Why does it even matter? Why is it something that I'm even choosing to talk about? How could it even really be a superpower? How does it relate to wellness practices? And also, how can we use it? How can we use it to cultivate deeper awareness within our wellness practices, deeper awareness within ourselves? And what might be possibly tapping into and siphoning some of our awareness without us actually knowing it? Meaning, is our awareness a hot commodity? So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the first part of this, which is defining what is awareness. Now, I decided to do a couple different things here. I did what I usually like to do, which is use Oxford Dictionary or Merriam-Webster Dictionary to define these terms. But there's a third part to this. I also used the OpenAI ChatGPT feature to ask the bot, what is awareness? Because again, this bot is like pulling definitions from all over the web, and I was super curious. And for whatever reason, I had never really paid attention to using chatbots before and just using AI in general to answer some interesting questions and to bring this into this space. So I'm actually kind of excited. And so you might experience me just being like, I don't know, like super excited to just bring all types of tech into the space, being this wellness space, being the podcast, being everything that I do for EcoWelco. But anyway, so let's get it started. So Oxford Dictionary defines awareness as knowing that something exists and is important. Now, where Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as the quality or state of being aware, knowledge, and understanding that something is happening or exists. Now, the ChatGPT definition of what is awareness, that being the actual prompt that I put into this chatbot, is awareness refers to the ability to perceive, understand, and be conscious of one's surroundings, thoughts, emotions, and experiences. It is often considered to be the state of being awake and attentive to the present moment. Now, I'm going to end up using the definition that this chat bot presents because of how well-rounded and exhaustive it is. Now, of course, being aware of something is like the Oxford Dictionary and Merriam-Webster defined it as just being aware, right? Like you have a knowledge and understand something is happening or that something simply exists, right? Those are really simple, straight to the point. They're not super vague. They're like, okay, this is what it is. The reason why I like this AI response is because it's a little bit more comprehensive. It talks about how being aware of perceptions, understandings of your surrounding and of yourself. So yourself being your thoughts, your emotions, and your experiences. You could also be aware of the external environment, meaning the emotions of other people or even animals, the experiences of other people or other living beings or non-living beings, what have you. Now, the last part that I want to tap on and from this definition from the A from the bot is a state of being awake and attentive to the present moment. Now, I won't go over this in this episode because this episode would end up probably being like 2 hours long if I try to define all these different concepts. But I did take some time before to define the difference between being awake, being aware, being attentive, focus, and all these different words that essentially can be used interchangeably to discuss this concept of being aware of something or just knowing that something exists, knowing that something is happening. But these occur at varied levels of consciousness, which is extremely interesting. And then we can also ask this question of like, am I aware when I'm asleep? Am I aware when I'm lucid dreaming? Am I aware when I'm being conscious or or acting from my unconscious mind? Like, what really is aware, and how am I being aware, and how does that relate to being attentive and everything else? Now, what I can sit and define a little bit is this concept of like saying awareness versus focus versus attention. And also energy. Now, awareness is a form of energy. I am directing my awareness, my attention, my focus into a direction. But in other ways, you've probably also heard the word focus and attention being used interchangeably for awareness, right? So, but there is an interesting concept of this. I can be aware of something, like just say I'm aware of my body. I can then use my focus or my attention to hone into something in particular about my body. Like if I'm having a tense spot. I have a meditation, a guided meditation that I've offered before. You can just go on my site and look in the bio to explore it. But it's a body scan meditation where I guide you to be aware of your whole body. And then I also guide you to move your awareness from different parts of your body to become aware of any type of tension, tightness, discomfort, whatever it is. And then to focus your breath into that tense, tight, whatever it is, area, so that when you're breathing in any type of light or any healing energy that can like go into that space to break up any blockages, and you're exhaling whatever that blockage may be. Now, this is the goal, to just simply relax the body, to release any tension, and to show you that you can actively use tools that are literally a part of you, being your breath and your awareness, to help you to calm your body. That's an example. Another example is, let's just say you are focusing on a project at work. You are aware of the project. You are aware of the deadlines. You are aware of everything that has to be done. You're aware of all the existing and moving parts of your project. But within your project, let's just say at this very moment, you are focusing on managing the budget and a spreadsheet. That is your focus at this moment. You're trying to make sure that all the numbers are right, that everything is categorized correctly. But you do have this grander awareness of the whole thing. Now, you can also be aware of the fact that, I made a slight typo in one of the numbers. Let me go back and fix that. So you can see that awareness can be this really grand thing, which we can also find when we reflect in grander society. I can be aware that something really horrid is going on in a country halfway across the world. And I can decide to focus on an initiative that is trying to help to alleviate the suffering that people within that space could be experiencing. I could also be aware that something miraculous is happening in another country. And then I can have a focus on specific companies or whatever that are leading the charge to really make sure that this happens. So from whatever it is, whether or not it's something, being aware of immense suffering or being aware of immense joy that is happening outside of myself or that is even happening within myself, we can use our awareness to actively be aware of just about anything. I mean, awareness is all expansive, is all encompassing. There is no limit to awareness. And I think that's one of the most interesting parts of awareness, is the simple fact that because there are no limits to it and because we can use our awareness incessantly, I argue that that's why it's a superpower. And once we become aware of the fact that we are aware, once we become aware of the fact that we are conscious, once we become aware of the fact that we can use our awareness in different ways, that we can control it, that we can take it back from where it's being siphoned from, that we can move it and deliberately where we want it to go, that we can actively use it to inspire change, to reflect and to observe and to release tension, to understand ourselves, to grow, to expand, whatever it is, to evolve, and to then influence the evolution of the people around us, our communities, and the entire earth. We can use our awareness to actively build new places, new environments, new realities, whatever it is. You see what I'm saying? I could keep going. And that's how powerful awareness is. So that's why I really wanted to create this episode today, because it's incredible. Like, I could break this concept down into even more episodes, which possibly might happen. But that's one of the most interesting things of interchanging these words together: focus, attention, awareness, energy, where we're placing these things. And the concept here of what I just said, where we're placing these things, where we're placing our awareness, where we're placing our focus and our attention, and how we can deliberately do this. But there are instances that I'm sure you may or may not be aware of, right? Of when we may not realize that we are not actively being in control of where we're placing our awareness. We may just be going off programming or habits, subconscious habits. We may just be going off desires that we aren't even necessarily super aware of. So you see how I keep using this word aware in so many different concepts. So for examples of different places that we may or may not recognize where our awareness is going, I can be aware that I'm actively using social media for all types of things. I can be aware that of my work, of relationships, romantic, platonic, familial. I can become aware of thoughts or not be aware of thought patterns that I'm repeating in myself. Other things that can influence our awareness are also movies, and also these are things that I could be aware that I'm actively watching. Other things that can impact it being beliefs and ideals. I can be aware that I'm in the gym. I can be aware of my beliefs and ideals. I can be aware of what's going on in my body, or I don't have to be. I can be super unconscious to it. Like, let's just say I'm constantly having a stomachache, but I'm not sure why. And maybe I'm trying to do something about it. I'm like, oh, this too will pass, and I may be blaming it on something else, but it could be the simple fact that I'm allergic to cheese. And so at what point in time am I allowing myself to have an awareness of what is causing me so much bodily discomfort? This is just another example. So all of these different ways that we can use awareness, and that we can also just not actively being consciously use our awareness, these are things that we can actively change. So let's just say I'm on social media. This is a big topic. This is something that I'm actively always kind of like catching myself doing sometimes. In some cases, I feel like I'm still kind of in the beginning stages of catching myself and becoming aware that I'm like just kind of like subconsciously, especially when I'm bored, just like going on social media, being on Instagram or something like that. And I think a lot of us actually do that. Like, we're trying to fill space and time. So instead of just allowing my consciousness to be like void for a moment, like just staring out in space, I find myself going to the app on my phone and just clicking on Instagram and just scrolling for a bit. And at some point in time, I'm like, oh my God, why am I doing that? Sometimes I click on Instagram subconsciously, and then as it's loading, I'm like, oh my God, I just did this again. Nope, I'm exiting out because I was just on this app. I don't need to be on this app right now. So depending on how aware we're willing to be of some of our habits, some of the things that we're just doing and not doing, whether or not it's relating to social media, whether or not it's relating to relationships that we have, how we're showing up for them, what we're saying, how it's relating to the thoughts that we're saying to ourselves or to others, how it is whether or not we're aware of the boundaries and whether or not we're enforcing our boundaries, whether or not we're aware of whether or not, we feel good about ourselves or we don't, we feel good in our body or we don't, we're taking care of our body or we aren't, how we're eating, how we're not eating, whether or not we are going to the gym, whether or not we are getting our work done, whether or not we aren't, whether or not we're reaching our goals and keeping ourselves disciplined or not, whatever it is. There's so many different things that we can become aware of. And we can ask ourselves in the moment, at any single point in time, what am I focusing on right now? What is in my awareness right now? What am I aware of right now? Am I consciously aware of this, or am I unconsciously or subconsciously aware of this? And is what I'm focusing on right now, is what my awareness is on right now, do I want to continue to give this person, this thing, this concept, this ideal, this whatever it is, my awareness? Do I want to keep giving this thought my unconscious awareness to the point where it keeps repeating itself? Now, we'll have a separate episode that dives even deeper into thoughts. I've done one before, but I want to go even deeper into thought patterning and repatterning because I've learned a lot in this past year. So there's a lot to that. That's a separate episode. But we can ask ourselves, like, what am I thinking? What am I aware of? Do I want to be aware of this? How is it making me feel that I'm just kind of aware of this, whether or not I'm actively being aware of it or not? Now, of course, given the definitions that I provide earlier, like, well, Niall, like, isn't awareness of me actively being aware that something is happening in front of me, that something is actively going on? So if I'm not actively aware that I'm constantly going on social media, that, like, I'm not actively being aware. Now, the reason why I'm using this interchangeably between conscious awareness and unconscious awareness is for two reasons. Even when we don't realize it, we're constantly intaking data. Data is constantly coming into our body, whether or not it's how light is reflecting off of a surface, whether or not it's what we're listening to in the background, be it a movie, a show, some music, what we're processing when we're scrolling through social media, and whether or not we're actively, realizing, oh, I just read this thing real quick that made me feel good or made me feel bad or whatever it is. Those are minute seconds of awareness. But in those minute seconds of awareness of whether or not we're picking up these things or not, we're also allowing ourselves to subconsciously take in these data points. So these data points can be affecting other parts of us, like how we think, how we feel, our belief systems, our perceptions, our understanding of ourselves and others, how we're showing up for the world and how we aren't, how we feel like we have to be or don't have to be. The list can go on. And I really wanted to bring in and hone in the fact of this unconscious versus conscious awareness, because this conscious awareness is this definition of knowing something, knowing that something exists, and that is important. The unconscious awareness can also be knowing something that exists, knowing that it can and cannot be important, and or just simply knowing that you're doing something, but how much weight are you actually putting into it? Are you actually aware of whether or not how much energy this thing that you're actively participating in, whether or not it's good for you, it's bad for you, it's adding to your life, it's not adding to your life, it's patterning your brain in a way that you want it to be or not want it to be. So there is this level of like unconscious operation or subconscious operation, subconscious patterning and habitual behavior, where your body may be aware of certain things, but maybe your mind is kind of not completely aware, but you do have this general awareness, but just consciously and actively being aware of something, and thus making decisions, thinking thoughts, doing actions, whatever it is, in response to whatever it is, or just simply observing it. Okay, so why does any of this even matter? Like, why am I talking about this concept of unconscious versus conscious awareness, attention, and all this other stuff? Now, I will say that your attention, this is my argument, as much as your attention, your awareness, your focus are superpowers that can completely change your life, they're also hot commodities. That new artist wants your awareness on their new song. That new brand wants your awareness on their product so that you'll buy it. That new company wants you to use their product so they can collect data from you to figure out what type of user you are, what type of buyer you are. Social media platforms want your awareness. They keep structuring and restructuring their algorithms, their platforms, how things pop up and show into your face to keep you engaged and wanting to come back to these platforms so that you can actively use them. And they're using this data, this user data, to then figure out how to continue to evolve their algorithms, keep people clicking on these apps, keep people scrolling, keep people purchasing, keep people doing whatever it is that they need to do or want to do on these apps. So as much as we may not realize it, our awareness is a hot commodity, something that big brands and small brands are paying top dollar for, to gather, to siphon, and to keep on their products, their services, their data points, whatever it is. And just as much as we may or may not be aware of how we're using our energy, focus, our awareness, we can then decide whether or not we're okay with participating in this commodification of our awareness. How do we do this, though? And why does it matter to reflect on whether or not we want this? Why does it matter to decide if we want to control our awareness in a way where we're not participating in certain dynamics, not participating in certain advertisement campaigns, not using certain apps, or not going to certain places, whatever it may be, so that our awareness doesn't become this constant data point, or this constant source of arguably psychological manipulation in some cases, especially when it comes to advertising. When do we get to decide if what we're placing our awareness and our focus on is something that we actually want to? When do we get to decide and to reflect on the why we're allowing ourselves to focus on whatever it is that we're doing? Now, I call this practice the why behind our what's, and it requires a bit of self-inquiry. So first, I want to say there's a big question that I have here is it possible to take back control of where your awareness is being siphoned consciously and subconsciously? And can you cut off the sources that are siphoning your awareness? Those are the two big questions here. That's pretty much summing it all up. The answer to that is yes, and it's up to you to decide to separate or create boundaries with these things. And this is where we get to explore the principle of understanding what is in your control, being your awareness, and understanding what isn't in your control being other stuff, and you deciding to do something about it. So this practice of the 5 whys being you have a what. So the what is, oh, I am using social media all the time. You can ask yourself why. Oh, well, I don't know, it's just a good way to pass the time. Well, why is it a good way to pass the time? I don't know, like, it keeps me kind of in the know. Like, I don't really want to be bored, so I can be entertained. Well, why don't you want to be bored? Why do you want to be entertained? Well, I don't really like, having these break moments in my brain. Like, what could come up in my mind if I have a moment to sit and think and do absolutely nothing? Like, am I even being productive? What if I'm not learning anything? Like, what would come up? I'm afraid of my own mind. Well, why are you afraid of your own mind? Well, I don't know. I've kind of had a lot of stuff happen. I don't really want to think about it. Well, why don't you want to think about it? I don't want to deal with it. Well, why don't you want to deal with it? You see how I'm going? So this example, of course, let's just say you have the same what, the what being using, constantly putting your awareness towards social media. And let's just say that your responses, your whys, they could be completely different than that, because it's such a hot topic for me. Is that, do you get to see how the whys are being used? We have the initial what, and then we have the whys that follow. First, we get to explore what the what is. Why is that the what? So this is the what, and why is that the what? I answer that, and then I ask myself, well, why is that the why? And then I get to ask myself again, well, why is that the why? As you can see, I'm going through this iterative process of trying to get to the bottom of why the what is even the what. We're using this specifically to explore awareness. You can also use this 5 why method to explore other things, like a habit that you want to set. You can say, I want to be more peaceful. Why? You answer that question, and then you ask yourself why again. You keep asking yourself why until you get to the very bottom of why that what is the what that it is. Why it's something that you want to focus on, why it's something that garners your awareness, why it's something that you're investing energy in, why it's something that's important to you, why it's something that matters. This is a really profound practice, and I recommend you actually try it. You can try it with anything. And I actually already have a document that I've created for you to explore the what's and the whys. I will include a link in the bio where you can go ahead and download that document, so that you can have like a digital form to do that in, or you can also access that document. And if you don't want to do it on a digital space, do it through the PDF. You want to just copy and paste it and put it on a piece of paper and explore it that way, but also use the prompts that are provided in that document. You can still go ahead and download that document there. So I will include a link in the description so that you'll be able to do that. Okay, so just a quick reflection again of why I believe that awareness is a superpower is that, one, controlling your awareness has its perks. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper in a moment. And that using your awareness to understand yourself, to alter or expand your perspectives, beliefs, thoughts, whatever it may be, and to relate to others also has its perks. But how exactly can we understand this? And how does this even relate to wellness practices to begin with? Let's dive in. So the role that awareness has in any practice and any wellness practice is just in everyday life, as we already kind of talked about, is one, everything starts with awareness. No matter the practice, no matter how you're using this wellness practice, no matter what the wellness practice is rooted in, whatever it is, it all begins with awareness. And if we begin to reflect on what a wellness practice is and the purpose that it serves, is that it's a practice that's rooted in your active pursuit of being in good health. And thus, as you pursue being in good health, you begin to cultivate good health. And thus, a wellness practice transforms the pursuit of being in good health to not only being in good health, but using this practice to maintain good health. So to remain in good health. So all of that takes some sort of consciousness. It takes some sort of awareness, some sort of focus also in order to do any of that. So when you're in the space of wanting to be aware or wanting to have a wellness practice, you first starting with the awareness that you want to have a wellness practice, that you want to cultivate some sort of wellness. You want to live well on purpose. And you're also now using that as an iterative process to learn more about yourself, to learn more about your emotions, thus leading to emotional regulation, to learn more about this concept that we talked about, the why behind your what's, knowing why you tend to put so much focus into certain things versus others, whatever it may be. Understanding your thought patterns, understanding the job that you chose, understanding whether or not you feel worthy or don't feel worthy, understanding the triggers behind some of your emotions, understanding why you may react certain ways that you may react to, understanding whether or not you want to keep reacting that way, understanding some of your feelings, understanding why your behaviors may be a certain way, understanding why you may care more about something versus something else, understanding why you may be more dedicated to one task versus something else, understanding why you may or may not be dedicated to taking good care of your body, understanding why you may be so fired up about some big action that's going on around the world and why you want to put so much effort and inspiration and why you want to encourage so many other people to reflect on this belief, reflect on this ideal, to take action towards something. Actively, you can use your awareness to understand all these things about yourself. Again, I said in the very beginning of this episode that awareness is limitless. You can use it for anything. This is why it's a superpower. And on top of that, you can control it. You can maneuver it. You can deliberately place it in certain directions. And you can take it away from things that you don't want it to be used for. It's astounding. I'm astounded. I'm constantly astounded. But this is why I think it's so important to use awareness and wellness practice, and how awareness in and of itself is its own wellness practice. And it is a wellness practice that is actively being cultivated into everything that we do. And it is the base, the foundation, the cultivator of everything else that can proceed. For example, if you want to shift from a mindset of lack or feeling helpless, like there's nothing that you can do, to a mindset of I'm in control of my reality, I'm able to achieve my goals and my dreams, I'm able to be this person, I'm able to help as many people as possible, it takes you first being aware that you're having the beliefs, the repetitive thought patterns, the actions that are associated with this mindset of I can't do anything about anything. Once you become aware of that, you get to then decide to do something about it. And the first thing that you get to do about it is to accept that that's where you are right now, without shame, without judgment. That's just where you are. And the next part is figuring out where to go from there. What is the next action step? And how do we use this process to dedicating ourselves to adapting to the mindset of the other spectrum of I am in control, I can help, there is something that I can do, there is purpose to my life. This takes awareness along the way. And you may realize that during this journey from one end of the spectrum to the next, that there may be a lot to unearth, a lot to uncover, a lot to release, a lot to become aware of in order to get you fully to that new space that you want to be in. That's the power of awareness. So awareness as a wellness practice, it has three main parts that I argue that we have to use, okay? So the first one is self-questioning. We've gone on a couple ways that we can use self-questions already. I've already posed a couple questions that you can ask yourself, and even the PDF that's offered, that in and of itself is filled with self-questioning that you get to explore. And this self-questioning can help to bring awareness to certain topics, to certain things, to certain thoughts, to certain reasons why we're even focusing on what we're focusing on, why we're even putting our awareness and our energy towards things that we're putting it towards. Then, like I said, the acceptance piece comes in. Okay, I'm aware of this. I can either ignore it completely. Now, if you ignore it, it's just going to persist. And if you have a certain goal or intention, even if you don't, you can make a new one. If you don't accept it for what it is, how are you really going to make it anyplace else? So acceptance. The third part of this is going to be some sort of action and setting an intention and allowing that action to fuel that intention. And with time, your awareness will grow and expand. And that will also call for more acceptance. Again, this acceptance should be rooted in self-compassion. Or not. For you to just sit there and constantly shame and blame yourself the whole time is not going to be the most productive thing. Now, if it happens, it happens. Again, accepting it. First, actually questioning why you're even having so much shame and blame and so much self-judgment, accepting that, and then doing something about it. It's this three-part process that can really lead to an expanded life. So let's keep going. Again, as I mentioned before, if you have an intention, right? Let's just say you have an intention, like I said before. Let's say your current reality is that you don't believe in anything and you don't think anything's purposeful. But you're kind of beginning to skirt around another perspective of what if there is something to this life? What if things can be purposeful? What if I can be of service? It's going to take you setting some sort of an intention, some sort of a goal, some sort of a focus, right, to place your awareness on to help you get to that point. Because you might have ups and you might have downs, you might regress. and then you might jump forwards. So how do you keep yourself on that path? By setting an intention. Now, if you already have a goal or intention and you realize that you've been kind of iffy with even following that to begin with, here's a time to revert to that intention, revert to the goal, maybe possibly even shift it if you need to. And this is also the great time to set a goal or intention. You can ask yourself, what do I want to focus on? What do I want to cultivate in my life? Where do I want to place my awareness? How do I want to control my awareness? And where do I no longer want to place my awareness? What do I no longer want to focus on? What are my do's and my don'ts? Actually, there's another PDF that I created that can help you really reflect on your do's and your don'ts. So there's two things. You got the why behind your what's and your do's and your don'ts. That will be, both of those you'll be able to access through the link in the description. Okay? And other things that awareness can be used for, which are quite exciting to explore. We've touched on these a little bit, but I kind of want to wrap this up with just going over them. You can use awareness to observe things, meaning that you are doing absolutely nothing about whatever it is in front of you, whatever you're placing awareness on. You're just simply observing it. This also means that you're not latching to it. You're not having an emotional response to it. Now, if you are, okay, cool, let that subside and keep observing. This observing goes to the point where you're even observing your responses, you're observing your reactions, you're observing the fact that you may want to do something about it, you're observing the fact that maybe you're getting bored observing it. You're just simply observing. This is where meditation can come in. Meditation is really good for also sitting and simply just observing. You can also use your awareness to expand your sensitivity about a certain topic or a certain feeling. You can also use this to expand your energy sensitivity, being able to process your own aura or auras of others, your own emotions or emotions of others, the subtleties in your own energy field. This is a separate topic. I won't go too much deeper, but you can use it to expand your sensitivities. Also, your sensitivity to your various senses. So you have your five senses, your touch, taste, smell, sight, and whatever. I'm missing one, but whatever. Your five senses. And then you also have your energetic senses. So you have your clairs. You have clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairsentience. It can keep going. Other things, emotional healing. Of course, when you become emotional healing is going to start with awareness, period. You got to become aware in order to realize where you got to go. You got to become aware of what is in order to figure out what to do next. As we talked about before, you got the self-questioning, the acceptance, action, and intention, repeat. It just keeps going as the journey progresses. Then you can use awareness to build a habit. A habit is usually based on some sort of a goal, which also requires a level of discipline. So using this discipline and this goal to build a habit and to stick to it. Because sometimes when you're building a habit, it can become extremely unexciting to stick to that habit. And at what point in time are we able to use our awareness to, one, realize that we're not interested in sticking to this habit, but then reflecting on the pros and cons of sticking to the habit and not sticking to the habit. And if we realize that the cons outweighs the pros if we don't stick to the habit, perhaps it's best for us to stick to the habit and to cultivate it so that it becomes second nature. Upskilling. I talked a little bit about this before as an example of, like, for example, if I wanted to get into machine learning and I had zero coding skills at all, zero understanding of this field, but I wanted to get in it, I'm going to have to upskill. I can use my awareness to realize where I'm lacking, to figure out what gaps I need to fill in order to reach my goal of becoming a programmer in that space, in the tech space. You can also use your awareness to become aware of thoughts, feelings, patterns, beliefs, to then repattern them using thought repatterning techniques, which is going to be a separate episode that I hinted on before. And of course, also intuited from this concept of using awareness to process emotions and do emotional healing, you can also use this to become aware of triggers and traumas. There's so many more ways, as I've mentioned before. Using awareness is absolutely limitless, but these are just some of the tips and tricks, some of the things that we can use them for, and so much more. So if I want to reflect on the top 3 things that we want to take away from this episode of awareness being a superpower, is that 1, awareness is a superpower. Why? 1, because you can learn to control your awareness, to place it to exactly where you want it to be and away from all the things that you don't know, that you don't want it to have it, or you no longer want to have your awareness. You can actively and deliberately move it from one place to the next in order to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve, do whatever you're trying to do, or just simply keep your ship tight, meaning filtering your energy in a space that you want it to be filtered as. If you don't want your awareness to be super expansive all the time in terms of you're allowing all different types of data all the time to enter your space and you want to just focus on one thing in particular, you can use your awareness to do just that for as long as you want it to do, and then you can shift it, you can change it. You're in control. Again, you're in control. Part 2 is understanding that you can actually use awareness in your wellness practices to not only expand within this practice, but to also expand within yourself. And as you continue to expand within yourself and to learn to love yourself more and to really process all the different things that you need to process, to evolve as a human and a spirit on this planet, then this inevitably will trickle out to the rest of the world. As you cultivate more love within yourself, you're able to allow that to ripple out to the world around you. You're able to shine in your authentic divine light, allowing others to receive that and do the same. You don't even have to speak on it. You don't have to say nothing about it. Somehow, some way, other folks will also be able to receive that ripple effect of your energy field and begin to have the same process of beginning to question and beginning to become more curious about where their awareness is going, what it's doing, and so have you. And the last part is that you can use your awareness to explore absolutely anything. It is absolutely limitless. So whether or not you want to get into the tech space, or you simply want to do some reflection, or whatever it is, your awareness is expansive. And we're going to continue to explore how awareness plays into a lot of the other topics that we're going to cover in this new season and in all the different group wellness coaching, individual wellness coaching, and all the other services that EcoWelco will be providing. Because again, our goal here is to live well on purpose. And how can we do that? By using wellness practices, by centering holistic wellness in our lives. And using wellness practices to do that. So choosing to actively be well, choosing to actively be in good health, and then choosing to actively maintain that health and allowing our awareness to guide the way. So I hope that the practices I recommended, the sheets that I've provided, and anything else that I talked about may have resonated with you in some way. I hope that it helped in some way. And if it did, let me know. Leave a comment. Talk to me on Instagram. You can find me at EcoWelco. You can also find me on YouTube at EcoWelco. Just talk to me. I want to know how you felt about this episode. I want to know any thoughts. If you have anything that you would like to say to be featured on the next episode. I'm happy that I was able to share my revelations and reflections on what awareness is, because I'm not going to hold you. A year ago, I didn't have this level of awareness about awareness. But now I'm here and I have this level of awareness, and of course this can always expand and unfold, which I'm always happy to keep you guys along for the ride as this happens. But yeah, this is a really powerful topic and we're going to keep coming back to it. So I'm excited that you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here. And again, before we close out, I just want to take one more time to reflect on what our intention was for this episode. Whatever yours was, take some time with me now to repeat it. I am in control of my awareness. My awareness is a superpower. My awareness is clear and grounded. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time in our next episode. Much love, many blessings, and so much light from me to you. Bye.